In the last video, we changed the router's IP address and configured a range for the DHCP address pool. In doing so, we also changed the IP address of the subnet in which the router operates. And as a result, our computer is now outside of the router subnet. We were not only disconnected from the internet, but changing the router's IP address also made it so that we were unable to reach the router itself or other computers on the network. In this video, we will not only reconnect to the router, but we will also assign static IP addresses to some of our client machines. In this video, we'll discuss the following: how to assign static IPs directly from the computer, how to assign static IPs from within the router itself, and finally, how to ping the router to test connectivity. Not all client devices require static IP addresses. For example, most smartphones and laptops that simply browse the internet don't really need a static IP. These devices can accept whatever IP address the router assigns them. Dynamic IPs are fine for devices with basic needs, such as browsing the internet. However, dynamic IPs don't really work very well for advanced networking, such as when using servers, network storage, and remote access. As I mentioned in the previous video, there are two ways to assign static IP addresses. One, directly on the computer, and two, within the router itself. We'll start with the first method and then ping the router to test connectivity. The first thing we should do is locate our computer's current IP address. In Windows 7, go to the Start menu, open Control Panel, and navigate to the Network and Sharing Center. Click the link next to Connections, then click Details. As you can see, our current IP address is 192.168.1.109. In order to reconnect to the network, we need to change this to reflect the router's new subnet that we set in the last video. Close the Details window and click Properties. Go to IPv4 and choose Properties again. Select Use the following address and enter an IP address such as 192.168.50.5. If you were following along in the last video, we created a DHCP address pool with a range of 100 to 150. Remember, when you assign static IP addresses, it should be either above or below the DHCP range. Doing so will prevent conflicts between static and dynamically assigned IPs. The subnet mask should be 255.255.255.0. The default gateway is simply the IP address of your router. But since we changed the router's IP address in the last video, enter 192.168.50.1. Next to Preferred DNS Server, enter the IP address of the router once again. Unless, of course, you are using custom DNS servers, but we'll talk more about that in another video. Click OK to save your settings. After changing the IP address, your computer should reset the network interface controller and update your IP address. You should also be connected to the internet and be able to ping your router. Let's do that now. From the Start menu, navigate to All Programs, choose Accessories, and open the command prompt. Type the word ping, enter the router's IP address, and hit Enter. What you're looking for here is something called Time to Live, or TTL, followed by milliseconds. As you can see, we have a 0% loss, which means that the connection is good. Now you should be able to open your internet browser, enter the router's IP address, and log in. Now let's assign a static IP address from within the router. Go to Basic, Static DHCP. From here you can manually enter the MAC address of your computer. However, there is an easier way to do this, especially if you don't want to trouble yourself with locating your MAC address. Navigate to Status, Device List. Some devices in the list may not yet display a host name. This can make it challenging to know which device you are assigning a static IP address to. Thankfully, Tomato firmware makes this a lot easier. By clicking the OUI link beneath the MAC address, you can view more information about the hardware. Once you have identified the machine that you want to assign the IP to, simply click the static link below the MAC address. From here, you can change the IP address. My personal preference is to use odd numbers for stationary machines, like desktops and servers. For mobile devices, I use even numbers. Therefore, because this is a laptop, I'll enter 192.168.50.8. If you plan to monitor traffic and usage for this machine, be sure to check the tick box under IP traffic. Now, enter a host name for this device. Do not use spaces here. Just enter a name that will help you identify the machine. If you need to use spaces, I recommend using a dash to separate characters. Under the Options area, there is an option that, when checked, will ignore requests from unknown devices. Basically, enabling this feature will ignore connection attempts from computers that are not listed here. If you plan to use this, just be sure that all of your devices are listed. Keep in mind that this can also help prevent any unwanted guests from connecting to your network without permission. Once you've added all of the devices that you want to have static IP addresses, be sure to click the Add button. Then, scroll down and click Save. Now, when you view the device list, you can quickly and easily identify machines by their host name. This is especially helpful when monitoring bandwidth usage and viewing statistics.